listen burner. Listen burner.
Fáilteach an glár speisialta in mé de ggóúidir ceol Christy Moore. Where I come from in Tedal atá an maileachán nua eisithe in bhfuil na haran go léir a chumsé baile heile chéige den chéadúir. Le breis is ráscór blian tá luch leúna Christy do le méid agus I tréifhse céanna san tá si taréis cursius lám na malah a thuirtúin gnéthe de héal na héireann agus é sásta gcónaí dul an leicla scéalta lochlacha le dínit is crógacht. Bhí de fleisiúr gom leart leis le gard.
And boats sailed out of Brandon in the year of 501. 'Twas a damp and dirty morning, Brendan's voyage had begun. Tired of tinning turnips and cutting curly kale, when he got back from the creamery, he hoisted up the sail. He ploughed a lonely furrow to the north, south, east and west. Of all the navigators, Brendan was the best. When he ran out of candles, he was forced to make a stop. He tied up in Long Island, put America on the map. To make it fast, he bent the mast and he built up mighty steam around Terra del Fuego and up the warm Gulf Stream. As he crossed the last horizon, Mount Brandon came in sight. And when he cleared the customs into Dingle for the night, when he got the spuds and bacon, he went to douse the drought. Well, he headed west to Cruger's to murder pints of stout. Around by Ballyferret, and up the Connor Pass, he freewheeled into Brandon, the saint was home at last. Is it right or left for Gibraltar? What tack do you take for Mizenhead? I'd love to settle down.
Christy, Where I Come From is the new release, a collection of all your old songs. Did this feel like a bit of a kind of a family reunion for you?
Well, it was something I wanted to do for a long time, because the songs are scattered over the decades and all different albums here and there. And I just thought, well, I'm still able to sing them, maybe to re-record them and bring them together under the one roof.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of that, all right, yeah.
You say in the sleeve notes that you started singing at the age of 6. What kind of songs were you singing as a 6-year-old?
Well, our mother was forever singing, so we kind of sang along with her. But the earliest songs I can remember singing are like The Meeting of the Waters. Kevin Barry was one of the first songs I learned.
Big songs for a 6-year-old.
Yeah. At 8 or 9, I was singing on little stages in Newbridge and variety concerts, and I remember the first 2 songs I sang on stage were The Meeting of the Waters and Kevin Barry. They were my big numbers in the 50s.
You couldn't have timed your birth better in terms of the folk revival and coming of age when all that stuff was happening. When did you first kind of fall under the spell of folk songs?
Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem. Prior to that, I would have heard Mammy singing a number of old songs. She had a very mixed repertoire. But once the Clancy Brothers came on the scene, Elvis, Buddy Holly, everything went out the window. Let me have some of this, you know. This is rock and roll I can relate to.
Yeah. And then, in terms of writing your own songs, was it something you sort of dipped your toe into, or did you jump in 2 feet first?
I dipped my toe into it. I started trying in the 70s, early 70s, and finally got one I could maybe sing towards the end of the 70s. But I've never been that prolific. I've always spent more time following songs from other writers than writing my own.
You mentioned nearly a full decade where you were kind of getting stuck into the craft of songwriting. Did it take a certain amount of courage to then release one of these songs?
I think the hardest thing is early on wasn't so much releasing them as singing them in public.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, how is this song going to stand up beside some of these songs I have in my repertoire that have been around for centuries, you know? But then you slip one in and it goes down okay, and maybe I'll try another one, you know?
Tell me a little bit about the years you spent over in England. You know, I mean, we owe quite a lot to the English folk revival in terms of the health of Irish music here now in 2013. Were those years very important for you?
Very, very much so. I discovered the folk scene in England 1966, and in Ireland, prior to going to England, I couldn't really get get going here at all. I found it very hard to get my foot in the door. And then I met up with Mike Harding, and Mike had a folk club in London, and he gave me my first folk club gig in late 1966, and I had my foot in the door then.
There was a real infrastructure, I suppose, for music and for touring and that. When you moved back to Ireland, did you feel like you were nearly starting again, or did you miss that infrastructure?
Well, I came back to Ireland initially to record an album called Prosperous, and then I went back to England again, and then we decided, the four principals in Prosperous decided to get a band together. So I was coming back to join Planxty, and that was just an amazing thing at the time, you know, to be playing with Liam O'Flynn, Andy Irvine and Donal Lunny, having only played solo for the previous 6 years. It really was an amazing experience.
Did you like being in a band?
I loved it, yeah. I loved being in Planxty, I loved being in Moving Hearts, and the current band, me and Declan Sinnott, I love that band as well. I love this thing that I do, you know. The entire population came, the place was chock-a-block. All love nor money wouldn't get your nose inside the shop. And the fishermen hauled up their nets, farmers left their hay. The Kerry people know that saints don't turn up every day. Everything was going grand till Brendan did announce that his reason for returning was to try and set up house. All the girls were flabbergasted at St. Brendan's neck to seek a wife so late in life, him a total wreck. Is it right or left for Gibraltar? Oh, what tack do I take for Mizenhead? Well, I'd love to settle down near Ventry Harbour. St. Brendan to his albatross, he said. And worn out by the rejection that pierced the poor man's pride, "Be God," says Brendan, "if I run, I'll surely catch the tide." And turning on his sandals, he made straight for the docks, and hauling up his anchor, he cast off from the rocks. As he sailed past Inishvick, yonder stood the albatross. "I knew you'd never stick it out, 'tis great to see you, boss. I'm bailing out," says Brendan, "I badly need a break. Oh, all this dingle-dangin', it's more than I can take. Oh, is it right or left for Gibraltar? What tack do I take for Mizenhead? I'd love to settle down near Ventry Harbour." St. Brendan to his albatross, he said. Oh, St. Brendan to his albatross, he said.
Was there much talk of politics in the Moore household when you were growing up?
It was a political house, all right. My father, he was in the Irish Army during the Second World War, and he came out and got involved in local politics and then in Fine Gael politics. He was county councillor. He narrowly defeated for the Dáil, and then he died very young, and my mother assumed his political roles in the town. So we were always aware growing up of issues, and there was always meetings going on in the house and this, that and the other, you know. So in that end, yeah, and my mother, as a young woman, was involved in republicanism as well. So she always had that edge to her, you know, and it was in her songs, of course, as well, the songs she sang.
Because one of the things we see in a lot of these songs is kind of, you know, miscarriages of justice and deprivation of justice for people. Are you drawn to stories like that?
Well, again, kind of going back to Newbridge, I can remember as a small boy there being evictions in Newbridge. And I can remember my father being very incensed when the parish priest spoke about a strike that was going on in the town. And was critical of the strikers. And I can remember my father being really angry about that. And I can remember another day on the main street in Newbridge, Daddy intervened on a drunken man who struck his wife. And it was quite frightening. And a lot of people came to the house when Daddy was in the council, and later Mommy was in the council, looking for things. And, you know, and invariably we knew what was going on.
Tell me a bit about your song about Anne Lovett.
Well, Nigel Rolfe wrote that lyric, and he's a really fine artist. a performance artist, among other things. And he sent me that lyric and asked would I record it. And I said I'd try. And I don't. This has only happened to me once or twice. I actually didn't try to write a melody until the red light went on in the studio, and I just sang it as it is 25 years later. So it was the emotion of the event inspired the melody, you know. I always think of Anne Lovett as a very important name in our recent history. Her passing and her awful death, I feel was a kind of a turning point in the country. Her light still shines. Everybody knew, and nobody said. A week ago, last Tuesday, she was just 15 years when she reached her full term. She went to a grotto, just a field, in the middle of the island, to deliver herself. Her baby died. She died a week ago, last Tuesday. It was a sad, slow, stupid death for them both. Everybody knew, but nobody said. At a grotto in a field, in the middle of the island. In memory of Anne Lovett.
You mentioned the Clancys earlier on, and I suppose for a generation they were the kind of the go-to point for in terms of connecting with Ireland, particularly with the diaspora all around the world. You know, for another generation, it's you. I mean, people listen to Christy in Sydney and San Francisco and all over the world. Do you appreciate that standing that you have with Irish people and with people who are in their 20s?
It's a strange thing, really, you know. It is a strange thing because I'm aware of it, but I try not to absorb it because it can be a bit daunting sometimes, and it can be a little bit scary sometimes. But I'm long enough around now to know that it's the work, and it's a bit like when you go out to sing these songs for 2 hours in front of 1,000, 2,000 people. It's an act, you know. It's not like you are at home, or it's not like you are when you're down eating the porridge in the morning. It's a different gig, and I think as long as you leave it there, you'll survive it, you know. I mean, it's a wonderful thing that people like to hear these songs, but it's the songs that have sustained me, you know. The songs are just passing through me.
Will you tell us a bit about the Two Keneallys, one of my favourite of your songs?
We were out on Inishmaan, and our children were young, and Valerie and I were in Inishmaan having a lovely holiday, and we came down one morning in the guest house, and the atmosphere on the island had just changed overnight, and we didn't know why. We didn't know what had happened. And I have this vision of an elderly lady dressed in black with a pair of binoculars looking out to sea. And then the Banatee told us that there were 2 fishermen lost out of Inisheer during the night. And it was almost like as if the birds stopped singing on the island. and the dogs stopped barking, the whole atmosphere changed. And that's where the song began, just that day. And it was the people of the island had asked me to sing, asked me would I sing, and it was arranged that I sing in the community hall in Imeall the following Thursday or Friday, and I didn't know what to do. I said, maybe we shouldn't do this because maybe it's disrespectful. But I left it up to the people themselves to decide, and they said, no, we'll have the little concert. And that night I sang the bones of that song, but that didn't get completed for a while. Hear the Atlantic seethe and swell, and hear the lonesome chapel bell. God save their souls and mind them well. The two fishermen Keneallys. And yesterday at 4:30 they pushed their curragh from the shore. One took the net, well, one took the oar, and the two fishermen Keneallys. From Connor's Fort and from Sing's Chair, towards Inishmore and Inishere, they scour the sea in silent prayer as they go searching for their neighbours. And die a vertiska river knock me a rash var an tra. Go me of sunne sa stern jav a Thomas a Gashon o Keneally. Draw the seaweed up the hill and sow potatoes in the drill. Try to understand God's will and the loss of the two Keneallys.
The stories that we see in these songs, you know, they're stories that a lot of songwriters probably wouldn't want to go near. You know, did you ever find yourself landed in hot water because of some of the songs you've written?
Oh yeah, that happens all right. But I always think that when that happens, it means the song is being effective. You know, if people throw you into hot water over a song, the song must have touched a raw nerve. You know. It has happened a few times over the years. Songs have been banned and songs have been taken off albums, and recently there was, of course, the uproar over Arthur's Day, which was great. The song played a part in the debate.
Yeah. What songs would have ruffled a few feathers?
I suppose the first big one was They Never Came Home, the Stardust song. That ruffled a few feathers. Have we forgotten the suffering and pain, the survivors and the victims of the fire in Artane? And then songs about the hunger strike, and songs about strip searching, songs about the blanket protest. All those songs were received well in some quarters and not so well in others. Giuseppe Conlon, song about Bloody Sunday. Those kind of songs, ruffled feathers.
Is there any, I know this is over 40, but is there any one song on the new collection, any one song that you've written over the years that you wouldn't want to give to anyone else? one that you're especially happy with?
I certainly would never not want to give anyone a song, because the one thing I've encountered right through my life is the generosity of other writers, people who will just you show interest in a song and say, well, here it is, sing it, you know. And I certainly would never be precious about, like, anytime anyone contacts me to use a song, or, well, I would say for what purpose. I mean, if Diageo wanted a song now, that might be a different story. But if a singer wanted a song, work away.
I'd say every household in the country, Christy, has one of your songs that's kind of a regular at family occasions. In our family, it was The Wicklow Boy, because my own grandfather was one of the doctors who went into Nicky Kelly.
Okay.
Do people come up to you all the time and telling you what their family Christy Moore song is, let's say?
Well, yeah. And I always cherish that. I always cherish that. And also, you hear things like, my father and mother used to play your cassettes in the car when we were small. And I love that. Somebody coming to a gig 30 years later because they heard Don't Forget Your Shovel on a cassette when they were kids, you know. And another thing I love as well is if there's a bad word in a song, if there's a feck or a shite in a song, kids latch on to that. And they play that one again, you know, because they're hearing a word they're not supposed to say, you know.
Yeah.
Wicklow Boy then.
Lovely.
As I walked past Portlaoise Prison, I'm innocent, a voice was heard to say, my frame up is almost completed, my people all look the other way. 7 years ago his torture started, a forced confession he was made to sign. The young Irishmen, specially trained and chosen, were on the heavy gang that made him run the line. Others in the Bridewell heard him screaming. Even prison doctors, they could see his injuries were not self-inflicted. Those who tipped the scales did not agree. Give the Wicklow Boy his freedom, give him back his liberty, or are we going to leave him in chains while those who framed him up still hold the key? The People versus Kelly was the title of the farce they staged at his appeal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. I often wonder how those men must feel. As I walked past Portlaoise Prison, through concrete and steel a whisper came, my frame up is almost completed, I'm innocent, Nicky Kelly is my name. Give the Wicklow Boy his freedom, give Nicky back his liberty, or are we going to leave him in chains while those who framed him up still hold the key? Fair play, Tristan.
And Christy.
We'll go on the road. Nice one.
Bígan downton teachtan se chuin ar bheith fiocht na brean an am cainte le Mike Scott me an Gernin Fisherman's Blues, bígan íhiochtaí cultúrtha ghailinn le tríscór bliain á phléigean, agus drámaíocht phobal in se chóir le Grace Dias agus History.